Is this thing live? I hope we're live. Looks like we are live. What is happening, everybody? Let's see if I can swap this over to the other camera. Will this work? This will maybe not work at all. Wow, this camera looks like ass on here. What happened? Here we go. We're going to try this again. Hold, please. We're going to try with a different camera because right now it looks like I'm being filmed with a kumquat. So if you are on, hold, please. We will come back in just a minute. I'm going to get a, well, we'll leave it. We'll do it old school. How about that? All right, what's happening, everybody? So it's time for cam chat. In the spirit of me recently putting together some cams for some shops, I figured it would be about time, about appropriate to answer some of y'all's questions about camshafts. It's typically the most common question that I have. What cam will work with this combination? What cam will work with that? Why do I not see more people running these cams? So let's dive into it. If you've got a Gen 3 Hemi and you're looking for a camshaft, there are some recipes for success that are out there. There's also some recipes for failure. So I want to walk y'all through some of those and hopefully steer clear you guys from some of the issues that you can run into if you're talking about or if you're thinking about putting together a cam and you're talking to different folks about what the grinds look like. So what I'm going to do is I am going to be going back and forth. By the way, if it's your first time hanging out with us, thank you for stopping by. Typically on these live chats, it can be motorcycle related. It can be Mopar stuff. It can be Ford stuff. You never know what's going to be on some of these live chats. So in this case, we're talking camshafts. So let's dive into it. First, we check in. Gary Fuller is first in. He's got the flex. I like it. Ryan is in. Britt is in. Ryan's got the cadence. Flex with the ball guy with the shades. I like it. David is in. X is asking, should the engine be tuned to rev higher if you have a performance aftermarket cam? Sort of, kind of. It's going to be part of a tune. So it's not going to be tuned to spin higher. It'll be a function of your intake manifold, the camshaft, and how everything is working together. But we'll get into that in a second. Ryan saying, don't get him started on the new Shelby Daytona aspirin thingy charger, whatever that potentially hurts rent-a-car friendly looking thing that they're throwing out there. All right, so let's dive into this. Camshafts, why aren't they very good for 392 cars? Why is it that you just can't throw a cam into a 392 and make another 70 horsepower rear wheels? Well, the reason for that is the stock camshaft in the 392 is actually pretty good. And this is where guys get really kind of confused. First things first, guys, camshafts, there's nothing magic about a camshaft, and there's nothing magic about an engine either. Guys will say, the LS, they love camshafts. No, LSs are under-cammed from the factory. They've got crappy cams in them from the factory, and it doesn't matter which one you're talking about. So keep that in the back of your mind. The Gen 3 Hemi for the 392, it actually has a fairly decent camshaft. The only real drawback being that the lobe separation angle is incredibly wide. Fun fact, if you're doing a positive displacement supercharger build on a 5.7, the 392 cam is ideal for that if you want to go with a budget cam. What is on these glasses? If you want to go with a budget cam that will perform really well with that. Wide LSAs are good for positive displacement supercharger. It's about the only time the only time that a wide LSA, it's a lobe separation angle, it's the only time that's really good for anything is if you're really trying to make big horsepower at really high RPM, or if you're running a PD blower. Makes them easy to tune too sometimes. but not all the time. Let's see. Oh, so there's that. We're going to talk about 392s. We can also talk about 57s, but the 392 has 121 degree LSA. Fun fact on that, it's basically the same as a Hellcat cam. Hellcat just has more exhaust duration, but that's it. It's the same basic intake as a 392 cam. The 5.7 has a much tighter lobe separation angle. It's 115, which is not shabby. And they work really well for Pro Chargers, but they're just really small on duration. So to really get the most out of it, you need more duration out of the cam for really either the 5.7 or the 392. Let's see. Eric is in. Good evening. Good evening, Eric. Stewart. Hello. Ryan. Oh, yeah, here we are on that. Yeah, don't get him started on that. Okay, here we go. Back in the mix. Moto X. Greetings. Greetings, Moto. Stewart, do you have to degree a camshaft or does it come already degreed? Both are accurate. It is best to degree a camshaft. However, a degree or two advanced or retarded for the intake center line, your camshaft designer has a certain, it wants your intake center line to be in a certain spot. There is a little bit of wiggle room in there. Most camshafts nowadays are very accurate. However, I have seen some that are a little bit out of whack. So they come from the factory with a specific intake center line and exhaust center line. Intake opening points and closing points are at certain degrees of crankshaft. That's rotation. That is already part of the grind of the cam. So by that definition, they are degreed. However, if somebody bumped the machine while it's being ground, who knows what can cause it to get a little bit funky, or you just have the wrong camshaft in the box. That's happened. So it's best to degree a camshaft just to validate where the intake center line is. You don't have to worry about mid-lift numbers or anything else like that. As long as your intake center line is within a degree one direction or another, you'll usually be okay. But that's why I would suggest degreeing the camshaft. Stuart, do boosted cams not work on NA because of the wide LSA? So no, boosted cams work. A camshaft is a camshaft. It has no idea what's going on. It only is there to open and close valves at prescribed moments. There's nothing about like a boosted cam, for example. In this case, I guess what you're asking is about a positive displacement supercharger where you would, like an LS9 cam has 119 degree LSA. It just means it's really wide. It works fine on an NA combination. In fact, it works pretty good. Like a cam profile like that works really good if you're trying to stretch RPM way out. But realistically speaking, you're going to be in your LSA, your lobe separation angle for a street NA grind is going to be somewhere around for what we're talking about is going to be somewhere between 113 and 114, maybe 115 degrees LSA. You don't want any more than that with wide duration numbers on a Gen 3. Because wide LSAs murder mid-range torque numbers. So that's the reason why you don't run them. So there's that. It wipes out like from like 2,700, call it 3,000 RPM to 5,000, 4,500 RPM in that range. A wide LSA is no good for that power range at all. But boosted cam, so you asked about a boosted cam. One of my cams for centrifugal superchargers has a very tight LSA. And that's just so that it makes really good power through the mid-range, like strong. And it sounds good too, but it makes good power through the mid-range. And then you just hang the thing on the compressor to drag your RPM out a little bit on the thing end. Works fine. Let's see, Gary, just would love for my scat to have a little bit of chop for sure. The Vince asking, would I rock a pink Demon 170? Yeah, why not? One of the Pink Panther colors is a legacy color. There are some guys that race the pink cars. They're real easy to pick out too. Good looking car. Oh, Ryan, good deal. Looks like he's got a shot at a 2010 Charger. Very nice. SRT8 car. Those are nice cars. I've always liked the 6.1 cars. I've been saying, so then Dodge realized, oh, the Demon fully wide body. I don't know what the deal was with that. I don't know what the deal was with that at all. It's kind of campy looking to me. And Vince said, do you think they should have offered only the rear wide body option like the 170? So there's a car running around Houston that has the flare. I guess they put just only the rear flare on the back of it. I mean, it's an aesthetic choice. If you like it, cool. If you don't, this is good. It's a weird aesthetic for me. I get why. My thing with that look is it's a weird look, but it looks really freaking good with a true drag back wheel and tire setup on it. So from the factory, looks like shit. But when you put an aftermarket set of wheels and tires on it, looks properly, seriously good. X is asking, my setup is 6.1, 218, 226 cam. It's a good little cam. PSI 15, 16. Somebody's got the good springs in there. Hellcat lifters, long tube headers, LMI intake, and forged 6650 push rods. Peak power right under $6,000. That's exactly where that cam is going to make it. Absolutely. 6.1 with that intake and that setup. Fun street cam. I think that 218, 226 is probably on like a 112 LSA, which is, so that cam with more duration would be very similar to a lower boost, like a very, very street oriented centrifugal supercharger cam build. Street car type deal. Works good. Yeah, 112. Yep, that's exactly the same cam I put together. Brent saying Dodge has 7 of the top 10 slowest selling cars right now. Yep. I don't doubt it. There's nothing to get excited about with Dodge. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, but there's nothing for guys to just latch onto. Nobody wants to buy a V8 car right now. They're scared to death that the Hurricane 6 is going to show up and mop the floor with it. And, Dodge is just doing a bad job overall. There is such an opportunity to really just there is so much money hanging out there right now with the Gen X crowd, the Cold War kids. They can make so much bank if they would just drag something like the Conquest or a true like Daytona door wedge style car out there with that Hurricane 6. I promise you that would get stupid sales numbers. It's the only car. Okay. It's the only car, not truck. It's the only car that I would consider buying right now that's not called a Mustang, is if they did something like that. And I mean, blue and silver, the whole paint thing, all of that stuff, make it all-wheel drive. Oh, ouch. That would be pretty sick, but they're not doing it. I don't know what the deal is with this. See, here's the problem with Dodge. I don't want to get too far off topic here, but the problem with Dodge is the same problem that Harley Davidson has. They keep pandering to an age demographic that is losing interest or is dying off. The more you keep not bringing the youth, the 20-somethings, the 30-somethings at the oldest into the fold, or guys that are just very young at heart. Or you got, what I mean? Like you got some people that are 50 or 60 that will probably have more youth in them than some people that are like 30. Those are the guys you need to also be pandering to. And they're not doing it, guys. And so they keep going after like the AARP crowd. And it's just, there's no excitement. There's no reason to get worked up. And again, they're not giving us a reason right now. So there is that. Let's see. It's saying Dino Graph reads 470 and 449. That's a good running street car, man. It's a fun one. Yep. Vince asking, what would you go with? Brand new wide body Scat Pack Challenger or used 2022 Hellcat for the same price? You go with the Hellcat. You go with the Hellcat because it's got a higher, it will retain its value better. The wide body Scat Pack is clean. I would say if it's one of the swinger cars though, it'd be tough. It'd be a tough pick. But if it's a generic wide body or a Hellcat, you almost have to go with the Hellcat if it's clean and it's stock. Oh, Daniel, yeah. MSRP is through the roof. Insurance, interest rates is the big one. Stuart, the Hornets, a snooze fest. Yeah, it is. Hard Rock saying, good evening, good evening. Ryan saying, the i6 ever put it in a car, damn it. Yeah, I'm right there with you on that. Light blue Challenger looks like a big bar of soap. It depends on the shade of blue, I'm pretty sure. Some of the wraps I've seen on those cars is just a little cringy. I will say, but as far as blue goes, man, always have like the B5, and then of course Frostbite. Brent, very true. Plus the dealer markup. I will say this: dealer markup's pissed off a lot of the public. There's a lot of public that is not real happy with any of the manufacturers right now. Prince, yeah, we got him started. Yeah, I can go bananas on that. The Brotherhood of Soy. I tell you what, this is the problem. This is how flaccid that Dodge has made its buying Johns right now. Nobody is talking about nobody, and I mean zero people are talking about the truck. This is how you know things are getting a little bit worrisome, because you've got some diehard truck guys. Like you may not know it, but I am really kind of more of a truck guy than a car guy in general. And you're not hearing the dealership guys getting worked up over that truck. And that's the thing that scares me, because that is going to be the new hot rod, high performance pickup truck on the market. There's plenty to say that the standard variant of that engine is going to be more powerful and will outperform the 5.0 from Ford. That's the only one you're really worried about. The 6.2 in the Chevy, which is only available in really high tier trucks, that the money's too big for that. And anytime I see the 6.2 in a comparison, I just kind of, because it's not like really, okay, so let's make sure we're doing a dollar for dollar comparison here. Regardless of the brand, Dodge or Ram, gotta get my brand right. Ram as a brand does not have any momentum right now. And they don't have any with me, fellas. I got to be honest with you guys. Ram has gone up and pissed me off. The problem with Ram and the problem with Dodge is shoddy build quality. Let me illustrate for you. Okay, so in my drawer over here, I forgot about this. I still had backup wheel speed sensors for the Hellcat. And they have to be Mopar. They've got to be Mopar, because if they're not Mopar, you know what? They don't work. Aftermarket parts don't work in that car. The build quality and the sketchiness of the electronics in that vehicle or in that brand, in my truck, in the Hellcat, in my SRT was, man, it was sketch at best. Okay. And so because of that, there's a lot of folks that are going back to Ram. They've already been there and done that. By the way, the e-torque is shit with a capital SHITLMNOPQURSTUV, alphabet soup, that bitch, all capital letters. That system is junk. And I think that's where my squeal is coming from, that I can't ever seem to find, that is extremely intermittent on that truck. So it can't be something that's permanently bad because it won't permanently make the noise. Anyway, getting ahead of myself. Supposed to be talking about camshafts and answering y'all questions about cams. But damn, if I can't just not get over the glitchiness and the gremlins with my truck. And I really like Stormy, but I can promise you guys this, in about 6 months, Stormy's going to have to be replaced. And in that amount of time, I will maybe have put 26,000 miles on that truck. And only in small doses has it been entertaining. But anyway, let me get back to you guys. X is asking, how would I build a 6.1 based 426? Pretty generic deal. I mean, it's buy the block, get an Arrington block, factory heads, send those, ship the heads over to Hooper's Heads, have them put cleanup and a valve job in it. A cleanup port, basically. Stock size valves are fine. Get the heads up to around, the 6.1 heads actually flow pretty good. You just need to do a cleanup and a valve job. Extrude hone that 6.1 intake if you do anything to it at all. And 85 millimeter throttle body is really all you need. Although a Hellcat throttle body and just open up the inlet, you could do that too, but it depends on what you're building it for. I'm assuming this is a street based. The cam, I've done all kinds of different setups for 426s, man. For like a street based car, like a 234, 240 cam, but on a 114 did pretty good on a street car. ICL on that, I want to say was 109. It's a pretty healthy cam on that one, but it did well. I mean, it wasn't like any kind of, it wasn't rowdy. It sounded properly good. You can also do a little bit smaller cam. You can do a like a 228. Well, it'd be kind of small for a 426 for what you really want to get at. It all depends on what the goal is. Anyway, 1 3/4 inch long tubes, and you can go from there. Whatever catback you like, whichever one sounds good. Just don't straight pipe it. It sounds like ass. But yeah, that's kind of the going rate for something like that. PSI 15, 16. 080 push rods. The thing is with the 6.1 or any of the Hemis for the street, you've got to remember that they're pushing a heavy car around. So you don't want to get too nutty with like short runner intakes and stuff like that unless you're building a race car. And speaking of camshafts, so which cam works best? They all do. Some will make a little bit more power than others, but I mean, for the most part, you're going to be splitting hairs on a 392. If you're mid 220s on the intake side and you don't go too wide on the LSA, they're all going to make pretty decent power. And the other thing is, so let's talk about cam profiles and let's kind of dig a little bit deeper for some of the guys that want a little bit more in-depth conversation on the topic. Camshaft load profile is where the power is made. It's not in the total lift. It's not even really in the total duration. because the shape of that lobe is asymmetrical. You'll have more of a ramp, and the idea is to yank that intake valve or the exhaust valve off of its seat as fast as possible and get it within the confines of what the lifter and the valve train can manage as a whole. There's got to be some level of understanding there. The more direct line of sight your camshaft lobe, so to speak, has to the rocker, the better. And Hemis are nothing of the sort. Their valve train geometry is nasty. They've got heavy valves because you've got to have a lot of spring in play, and there's just a lot going on there. So you can't go absolutely bananas with the low profile, but that's getting a little bit in the weeds already. The idea is that you want that cam is trying to yank that valve off the seat as fast as possible and set it down as soft as possible. So there's a slight difference in the shape on the front end versus the back end of the camshaft. But for the most part, the idea is for a set of like Gen 3 Hemi heads is how long can you have the intake valve open, or the exhaust valve open for that matter. How long can you have that thing hanging open above, say, 550 lift? Because the party's pretty much over with those heads. Even if you port them, it doesn't matter. Naturally aspirated flow numbers, in other words, just atmosphere as tested flow numbers, you can get them high. You can really get them to where they'll flow big numbers or at higher lift numbers. For the street, for the most part, you're not trying to hang that valve open over 550 for a super long amount of time. Think of that top part of that curve, as the cam lobe itself. Think of that as follow through, because the cam, you can't just chop it off, right? That's not how mechanics works. You've got to have it, a nice flowing path for the lifter to take. So you think of the total lift number, really, frankly, you think of that more as follow through. And the idea is that you want a lobe that's going to yank the thing up quickly to get it to 550 lift as fast as you can. Carry that for an appropriate amount of time for what you're going to be working with, and then you're going to start to set it down. Everything else on the back end is just follow through. And what you don't want is a lazy lobe ever. But the main thing is with the Hemis, because they have such big ports, they flow huge airflow numbers. You really don't want a lazy lobe. A lazy lobe is one that opens it slow and closes it slow. That's not good for these engines. There's a thought process that a lazy lobe opening helps to create velocity. I got an intake manifold for that. It's kind of like the idea of, sucking through a straw. It's versus like that. You kind of get the idea. Intake manifold is there to generate velocity. The cam is there to get the valve open right now, if not sooner. So anyway, just some, quick cam chat there. Been saying, people have requested go green. Yeah, I don't think they brought it back. Did they bring it back? You could if you did the jailbreak, I think. Let's see. Derek saying, putting a supercharger on my 5.7 Charger. Preference, Whip, Maggie, or Eddie. Stock bottom end, 4,000 RPM stall, 392 gears with full AAD suspension. So it looks like you're looking at positive displacement stuff. Positive displacement supercharger with a 4,000 RPM stall and 22 gears is going to get old really quickly unless you are drag racing that thing. And that's going to mean that you're going to have more invested in tire bead locks, especially. Hoosier drag bracket radial is probably going to be the tire you're going to want to look at, because you're still using an independent rear suspension on this car. Between all three of them, you can't go wrong with Whipple, depending on how high you want to turn that boost up. Maggies are always good. Love Maggies on Hellcats. And of course, the Edelbrock, the E-Force also uses a Maggie compressor, if memory serves me correctly, and that is a really, really clean kit for those cars. So, in saying all that, again, 4,000 RPM stall with that kind of hit down low. Give you an idea, the truck guys use 4,000 RPM stalls on their trucks, and they'll lift the front tires off the ground with, well, they do have a lot of weight reduction because it's easy to pull weight out of a truck. But yeah, get ready, because that thing is going to be it's going to be a heavy, heavy hit with that setup. But I like them all. Again, if I'm building one myself, shit, and money's not an option, I'm going with the Whipple. Probably go whip 3.0, be honest with you, and just pull it down a little bit, because it's going to be real efficient. Maggie's good too, but the whip's pretty sick. Derek, 2014 Charger, Nag 1. Build the trans, Southern Hot Rod. Ryan saying they're not putting the i6 in until 2025. Like, WTF is that shite when Jeep already got it in Wagoneer? I know. What sucks about that is, how are you going to even have a vehicle that's that expensive be your beta test? By the way, HP Tuners has not cracked the code on that operating system just yet. Brent saying the new Ram does look the same. It looks identical, I think. Don't ever ask me for e-torque again. It ain't happening. Seriously, maybe a dumb question, but can you install a cam without updating the tune? No, you cannot. It won't blow it up. It'll just run like shit. There's in the tune, there is a volumetric efficiency table that you will 100% have to adjust, because if you don't, it will be overfueled in low RPM scenarios. It'll be potentially okay in some mid-range conditions, not in all. But up top, it will be underfueled. And so you will have a potential where you might blow it up. Depends on what the rest of the combination looks like and the fuel quality that you're running. But it'll just simply not give it enough fuel. It won't know to give it the fuel because the VE table is going to be shot. Let's see. X saying you cannot install a cam without a tune. Yeah, no, do not do it. Derek saying all cams require a tune. Absolutely. Joe saying, so when you say e-torque is, no, it's the shit. It's good. No, it's really good. Like really, really good. Okay, so one of my favorite cars to drive was a guy that came in and had a tune. His tune was revised for his wait. Oh, sorry. I screwed up. E-force, not e-torque. No, e-torque is terrible. Screw e-torque. It's not good. The reason why it's not good is, number one, it doesn't do anything for performance that I can tell. Number two, I think that it actually kind of screws up performance, because when it goes into like its recharging mode or something, you can feel it drag a little bit on the engine in certain scenarios. I don't know what it is good for, other than being the way that they do the start-stop technology on the truck is with that e-torque system, and I've got it permanently shut off with my tune. So I'm not a fan of it. I think it's a terrible. I thought it could have done something cool, but it doesn't do anything cool. So yeah, e-torque. Sorry, I'm thinking e-force for the A, just talking about superchargers. Moto X saying keeping the 08 F-150 Super Crew 5.4, putting new motor rather than the outlandish expense of the F-150. I had an 09 and I loved it. My wife loved that truck too. Oh, no abs want to do a cam in his. Cams are good, but I don't know, Noab, if it wouldn't make you any faster. Noab's doing a lot of drag racing with his car, unless you've got a converter to go along with it. If you got a converter to go along with it, it's worth it. But drag racing is a really funny game to play, because everything that you gain on the back end can be nullified if you lose anything in the first 60 feet. And it's weird like that. I can tell you that losing a tenth out of your 60 foot is equivalent to losing 2/10 out the back door. So you've got to come up with at least 2/10 worth of horsepower on the back end to cover that. And that can be tough to do. You can end up having a car that makes more power that's actually slower at the drag strip. Brent's, yeah, it's real hard to put a bunch of money into the Hemis when the new i6 has just as much or more power than the 6.4 and the 5.7. It's got significantly more, I can promise you. And if you haven't driven them, guys, take it from me. I wouldn't steer you wrong. If the thing ran like crap, I'd be the first one to tell you that they screwed up. Guys, they didn't. And if you've seen my after the drive video, I was in Stormy, which again is universally accepted to be a pretty quick version of a pickup truck, with it recently running a 1361 at just shy of 103 miles an hour. That truck would get mollywopped by either one of those Hurricane inline sixes. I can assure you that if the trans tune in the truck is as good as it is in the Grand Wagoneer. All right. Yeah, but they don't sound as good. That's something that my wife had mentioned. My wife is not a 6-cylinder chick. She doesn't care about turbo. She just likes the way V8 sound. In fact, she's the one that said, you do not bring a truck home unless you've got an exhaust already ordered for it. Marco is in. What's up, man? Brent's saying there'll never be anything better sounding than a Hemi with an exhaust system. I agree. They sound really good when they're done right. X, why do you think Chevy undercam their LS engines? EPA related. Man, I tell you what, good question. Super good question. The LS7 has a pretty decent cam in it, but that's the only one that does. The LS3 has, I can't believe that cam is in a performance engine. That cam should actually be in the LS, well, just like regular like a LQ, whichever, I don't know, the alphabet soup that makes up the 5 threes. Yeah, part of it is EPA related though. And part of the tune in that truck is really EPA neutered. Those trucks with a tune probably pick up more than any one of them. Fords do a pretty good job, but boys have got that 5.0 stuff pretty well figured out. But the 5.3, there's so much limiting it. But yeah, it's probably a combination of several things. Plus, you got to think, if you put a healthier 5.3, it makes it a lot closer to the 6.2. And that's kind of what happened with the 5.7 and the 6.4, except the 6.4 was never optioned, not in a performance way anyway, for the pickup trucks. Well, not for the half tons anyway. Ryan's asking thoughts on the Kenny Bell superchargers. The Kenny Bell, well, first of all, they sound amazing. They have an older lobe profile though, and they have a little bit of an issue with heat generation. So that compressor is made by a company called Auto Rotor. And those compressors were actually used as de-icing blowers at one point for airplanes. But they're good, but they generate too much heat. The latest lobe profile from IHI, from Whipple, which are similar, very similar, at least in how they perform. And with Magnuson is so far and away better than the Kenny Bell that it's just not, you wouldn't consider it at this stage of the game. Brent's asking, why do you think they detuned the 6.4 for the truck so much? shoot, man, I would love to give you an answer. It's got the best intake of any Hemi engine, period, that's naturally aspirated. Man, I can't tell you. Well, I guess I could for the 2500s, for the 3/4 ton. That engine is there to make more mid-range power and low tip in off wide open throttle, just partial throttle power than the 5.7. If you notice, it's not that much different in max power from the 5.7, but for partial throttle, it is significantly better for dragging trailers around. That's it. That's the only thing it's really good for. Oh, no, I'm doing a stall converter, an LSD diff in. I think it's 3600. That'd be a good place to start. I like it. That's the one you've had for a while. Yeah, I wouldn't go really much more aggressive than that. Realistically, if you're going to drive it on the street, it gets a little mushy. Some of the newer converters are actually pretty good if you've got enough gear to carry them, but if you don't have the gear to carry it, they can be, they're mushy. Yeah, that's the only way I can really describe it. But as far as the rest of the stuff with cams, so guys will ask me, well, what about, a blower cam? What about a turbo cam? They're really, of all the cams that there's really no such thing as a turbo cam. A lot of guys back in the day would flip the duration. You would have long duration intake, short duration exhaust. That doesn't work out well. A really good NA cam will work really, really well with a turbo setup. I will only say that you treat a turbo cam in some respects. It depends on what you're doing with it. It depends on the turbo that you're running. There's a lot of it depends on working out here. But if you're building a street combination and your goal is to not have something that spools to the sun and you want something that's instant, you put together kind of a tight lobe separation cam with kind of a tight duration. And you would have about the only thing you would do differently, you kind of treat it like a centrifugal supercharger with, an intake center line of like 108 or 107. But that's typically what I would do with one of those. Ryan, so 6.1 E-Force or ProCharger better for street use? ProCharger. If I have it my way, ProCharger. The reason why. So the E-Force is really good in general. The reason why I say ProCharger though, okay, it depends on the type of street use we're talking about. If you prefer and how you drive, if you like a car that has a lot of right now power that feels like you've got about somewhere around 470 cubic inches under your foot, go with the E-Force. If you want to make more outright power and just have the flare and the sound of the centrifugal supercharger, and the main goal is to make as much power as you can without being really hard on driveline parts, the ProCharger could be a better bet. I'll say this: if you're running around on drag radials, the ProCharger would probably be a little bit better bet because the ProCharger will allow the car to hook up a little bit better. If you're doing highway pulls, the ProCharger is going to be better. But for generic street use, and I mean straight up real talk street use, for every scenario that's not wide open throttle, the positive displacement supercharger is going to be better. And that's why original equipment manufacturers use them. Is because nothing beats a PD blower for under the curve power ever. Torquey old school muscle car feel. Yeah, go with that. Just know that the PD blower is going to be a lot rougher on driveline parts than the Pro Charger may be. So something to consider. And the Pro Charger is going to want to make power a lot higher up in the rev range. But that being said, they both have their place. Brent's saying the 6.1 intake is so nice. Yeah, stick with the Pro Charger. Yeah, it's a pretty engine. Of all the Gen 3s, it is the prettiest. Derek's saying for positive displays and superchargers, is it necessary to have an ice tank? Absolutely not. No, I don't like ice tanks. Or is the tank heat exchangers enough from the kits? Just use the stuff from the kits, man. I don't at all like ice tanks. They add unnecessary weight, unnecessary complexity. They're only usable at a drag strip because you make a couple of hits in the street with an ice tank and you melt all your ice. You'd be surprised how quickly it goes away. It's not like, you've got your cooler full of beer sitting in the trunk and you can just go back there and pop a cold one whenever the mood suits you. That ice goes like that, man. It goes real fast. So, but it just, stay the hell away from ice tanks unless there's always a rule here, unless you are doing mile, half mile, or you are really competitive at the drag strip. Those are the only times I would run that. Run a kit like that. But even then, I still if it's just every once in a while you're just playing around with it, I wouldn't do it. Derek's asking, how fast would I expect the 5.7 to run with a PD blower in the quarter? Well, it depends on the car. Is it full weight? Is it race prepped? Is it a Charger? Is it a Challenger? That's going to affect the weight of the thing. If we're just talking about a stock car and you're putting it on a tire to get it down the track with the least amount of drama, 1170s is pretty, all of them basically run somewhere in the high 11s. So, and you can always make it faster, but I mean, for a good, solid, just get down the road, have a good time kind of car, if you've race prepped at 1170s, if you haven't, it depends on your altitude and where you're at. Somewhere like a corrected 12.0 is a good place to kind of hang your hat. Brent's asking, what kind of horsepower can you really pick up with a cam for a 5.7, 6.1, or 6.4? For a 5.7, let's start at the back and go 6.4. I don't like cams. Okay, so on a Mustang, let's do Dyno Jet. You'll go from, say, 450, 460 on a Dyno Jet to 500-ish, say 495 or 500. 6.1s, you can get close to that same 40 horsepower number. 5.7s are about 35 horsepower, give or take, 35 to 40 horsepower. But the 5.7 and the 6.1, the power that you gain is a greater percentage of your baseline number. So you'll just simply pick up more percentage out of a 5.7. 5.7s do love them some cam. I will say that. So do 6.1s. 6.1s are clean with a cam, though, because there is no VVT crap. There's none of that. It's old school. I love me a cam 6.1. A lot of the cam 6.1s would put down, let me think about this for a second. The cam 6.1, the last one I can remember doing, that was only a 6.1, I want to say made 4.25 to the rear wheels, which was identical to a really healthy tuned 392. It was a small cam that went in that one. But that's 4.25 on a real stingy Mustang dyno. So that probably would have been right around that 470, 475 range. Maybe 480 on a Dyno Jet. More like exception to the rule. There's a lot of exceptions to the rules. Brent saying, is it really worth the 2K plus for the 40 horsepower? Depends on how bad you want that 40 horsepower. It's definitely expensive because you got springs, push rods, the cam itself, the cores are expensive. Plus, if you're not doing your own labor, it will be expensive. Derek saying Charger's gutted, 4,000 installed, 392 AA rear suspension, one-piece drive shaft, very good. 17-inch Hoosier on bead locks, very good. Front runners tuned by Jay Green. Personal best at 1230 at 108 with a 158 60-foot before the blower. It'll be a runner, no doubt about it. Trying to remember. That is very similar to a 5.7 car, but this guy, real similar numbers to that, but this was a different car. Yeah, 158 60 foot. That's a fun 60 foot, isn't it? I like that. But you know, as far as camshafts go, guys, one thing I'll caution y'all on, what used to happen back in the day is guys would put really weird looking cams, real wide lobe separation cams, lots of lift, all kinds of goofy stuff that did not play well with the Hemis. They ran like crap with those cams. Err on the side of small when it comes to Hemis. You'll be a lot better off, a lot happier. Smaller cams in Hemis, I'll give you an idea. This is something else that always I didn't understand. A small cam in a Hemi will make the Hemi act like it's just simply has more displacement. So it'll make a 5.7 feel like a 6.2, right? Like just like it's grown. It'll make a 6.4 feel like a 7.0. You know, it's if a smaller cam in those engines always does really well. Brent saying where I live, it's $1,000 just to get the PCM unlocked, then the tuning. That's yeah. Hard Rock saying Scavenger 1320 runs Hoosiers with bead locks on its 392. Yeah, he does. Brian's asking, are you keeping the car? If so, yes. Worth it. If not, then I don't think so. True that. Ryan saying nothing you can put back to stock before you sell it's a waste. Yeah, that's one of the things that I would always caution customers on at the shop is, look, man, just know that whatever money you spend is gone. And it's going to be tough to get any of that money back. You got to, you know, cams are a funny mistress because not everybody likes it, and not everybody is into the chop. Not everybody long term is into the chop, and that's probably really more the overriding thing when it comes to cams. Is it can be fun for a hot minute, and then it can get real annoying. So, but let's see, guys. Hey, guys, we are coming up on just shy of an hour. You got any questions, go ahead and hit me up, and then I'm going to be checking out. So I got to wake up early in the morning. Oh, no, I've said if I can bring my 60 foot down, that would be great. The stall converter will drag that thing down. Believe that. No question about that. So stall converter plus a cam, I mean, that's the best of both worlds. You just got to make sure you can plant that power. Derek's saying, they say you pick up 150 rear wheel horsepower with a P blower. That's optimistic, my friend. I mean, really optimistic. What's that worth in the quarter? Okay, so first of all, let's say you did pick up 150 horsepower with a positive displacement supercharger. Now you have traction problems. Now you have potentially transmission problems because that's a hell of a load down low. So it can be worth a little over a second in the quarter mile, and about 10 miles an hour. But if It all depends on how you set the car up and how it was set up before. There's a lot that goes into all of that. Keeping in mind that that extra torque is going to make your torque converter flash a little bit higher. There's going to be a lot of tuning that's going to be involved. So going from bone stock to blower, there's a lot of tuning that's been involved in that. So it's kind of hard to say, but the whole package in total, it will be significantly faster to say the least. But $150 at that weight, factor in somewhere around about a 1.15 second gain and about 11 mile an hour. Yeah, Ryan, and when you sell the car, if it's cam, nobody knows who did the work, how hard has it been run, all of that. So, but yeah, guys, well, listen, I got to wrap it up. It's a bit of a short one, but well, it's about an hour, so it's about normal. Anyway, guys, get out there and do something cool for somebody. Chances are they need it way more than you know. Love each and every one of y'all. Would not do this without you. And with that, that is a wrap, fellas. Y'all are great. Adios.